Life journey, I mean, it's a bit of a story because the life journey begins in South Korea, which is where I was born. And I was born at a time when Korea was going through a lot of political upheaval. It was relatively newly formed after the Korean War. Economically, it was not great. And like many sort of developing states, higher education was a real reach for, I think, many people. And so the combination of the economic condition of South Korea and the ability to make any social changes, be mobile in that way was very, very limited for many of those in Korea at that time. And so my parents decided to pick up and leave. At that time, my father had a brother in Canada who had emigrated in part through the military. He was serving in the Korean military, and there was some sort of a program that allowed him to move to Canada. And so my uncle, my father's brother, served as a sponsor for us. And so we literally packed up everything that we had in some suitcases and very little money and moved to Canada. I was 10, and so for me, I didn't realize what was happening. I knew that I was getting on a plane for the first time in my life, and what I knew at the time was that I wouldn't see my friends ever again. And so it was a very sort of a weird sort of situation, not realizing sort of the bigger picture and the huge impact that it would have on my parents in particular. As kids, we're much more resilient, and we can pick up and do things much more readily than our parents who were obviously much older. And so we moved to Canada. This was in December, just a few days before Christmas. And I remember landing in Toronto, and there was snow on the ground, it happens in Korea, but not very often. And so I guess it was very appropriate introduction to Toronto and Canada. And so we landed, and my uncle had prepared an apartment in the same building that they were living at the time. And so it was just a couple of floors away. And so it was all new, but sort of fun. We had our first actual Christmas at that time, and we got toys, and it was just a sort of a weird and wonderful time as a 10-year-old anyway.
How were your language skills?
Zero. And I guess sort of the sad thing in retrospect was there was such pressure to assimilate, to pick up the language, that I didn't really think about holding on to my Korean. And so my parents for a very long time made fun of me because I continued as an adult to speak like a 10-year-old. I think after my master's, I think I realized that academic life, it was something that I wanted to pursue. So University of Buffalo led me to Cornell University, where I did a postdoctoral scholar stint. I was there for about 4 years all told before I got my first job at American University. And I was there for 22 years. Yeah, and so my research was on, in broad terms, sustainability of corals and coral reef ecosystems, but also sustainability back home, that is at our institution. What can we do to contribute? Because everything's linked. What we do on land has an impact on what happens in the ocean. And so I was fortunate to be part of a very energized and very engaged group of students, faculty, and staff who wanted to push AU to become more sustainable. And so early on in my career there, not only did I participate in this group pushing for sustainability, but I was also able to create a Department of Environmental Science and really engage the entire community on some of these academic and institutional and other aspects of sustainability. And all of those things moved together, and 8 years into a 10-year plan, AU became carbon neutral, which we were very, very proud of as a community. Because I think Washington College is doing a whole bunch of things that are really well aligned with pushing for a sustainable campus, for a sustainable culture. And I think it will take a little bit of consolidating, a little bit of collating, a little bit of pulling people together to get Washington College to a nationally sort of recognizable profile in terms of the sustainable work that we're doing. If you think about, for example, the Center for Environment and Society, oh my gosh, I mean, that's a wonderful resource. And if you think about the student body themselves and all the great things that they're doing, working with bees and agriculture and composting and other sustainable activities, that's already in place. Nothing has to be created. And even the work that's being done through our Star Center for the American Experience, there are pockets of sustainability activity that's going on that just needs to come together and packaged in a way that I think would really elevate the work of the institution for both our internal audience, but also people looking at Washington College. And look at the backdrop of where we are on the right on the Chester River, on the Chesapeake Bay, and it's hard not to see Washington College as a leader in sustainability. Washington College in particular, but I think educational organizations in general should have a really important role in the communities where they are found. And I think that's reflected in our strategic plan as well, to more strongly engage with our community, to provide support, to provide some of the intellectual heft if needed, and also simply people power to do some of the work that our community members are trying to get done. And so I know that's also embedded in our strategic plan. I think if we uplift the community, then we uplift the colleges as well. And I think those two things should be really tightly linked together. One of the projects that we're embarking on is on something that we call makerspace. That is creating a space for not only the students and faculty and staff of our community to create things for entrepreneurship or even small projects, but creating that space also for our community members who may also thinking about making things, signs, objects, things, using 3D printers or etchers or you name it, that may help them improve their position in terms of their business or onto other sort of realize some of their ideas and bring people together to make that happen, academics and public and private members of our community. And so that's something that I'm really dedicated to making that a bigger part or expanding that part of our educational mission. And we're putting our resources to make that happen with this makerspace. We have a grant, I think a small grant from Maryland. And so we're hoping to use that to catalyze activities that bring all members of the community together.
Yeah, do you see